let's be totally honest for a second. Do you ever feel this massive pressure to spend an absolute fortune on those expensive smart toys, elite developmental classes, or, high-end tutoring for your child? It is such a common trap, and so many of us fall right into it. But what if I told you that you literally don't need to spend a single dime to drastically accelerate your child's brain development? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to completely shatter the illusion that building a brilliant brain requires a big budget. We're keeping things super dynamic today, moving really fast through the actual science of what works. Okay, let's dive right in.
1 million. Seriously, right now, as you're hanging out with me and absorbing this explainer, a young child's brain is forming over 1 million new neural connections every single second. 1 million every second. I mean, that is just a staggering rate of construction happening right inside their little minds.
And the really fascinating contrast here is that this massive million connections a second process, it isn't actually being driven by the price tag on some artisanal wooden puzzle, a private tutor, or a fancy Tuesday afternoon enrichment class. Not at all. It's being driven by what you do every single day, during breakfast, on the chaotic commute home, or right before bedtime.
So, are those expensive toys actually the answer, or are we kind of just wasting our valuable resources? Well, today we're setting up a rapid-fire playbook of 6 totally free, science-backed habits. And listen, these aren't just vague parenting tips. These are the concrete daily mechanisms that literally wire a resilient, highly intelligent brain. Let's get right into it and see how this all builds together.
Habit number 1 is all about reading, but with strategic pauses. Now, reading to kids is an obvious win, right? We all know that. But let's be real, most of us rush through the book just to tick it off the bedtime to-do list so we can finally go relax. But if we just slow down, the benefits absolutely multiply. Get this. If you read just 1 book a day to a child from birth to age 5, they are exposed to 78,000 more words a year than a peer who isn't read to. And we're not talking about everyday conversational words here. They're getting complex, descriptive words that literally build their capacity to tackle tough texts later on in school. But here's the secret. The real magic, it actually happens in the pauses. The absolute most valuable brain work doesn't happen while you're actually reading the words on the page. It happens when you stop. When you pause the story and invite your child to process what's happening, you fire up entirely different, way more advanced areas of their brain. So the absolutely crucial move here is asking questions. Things like, hey, why do you think the character just did that? Or how would you feel if that happened to you? By completely stopping the momentum of the story to ask about motives or emotions, you instantly trigger higher-order thinking. You're forcing them to analyze, evaluate, and build empathy. It completely transforms passive listening into this intense, active, cognitive workout. All right, let's move right along to our next habit, which builds perfectly on that idea. Habit 2, asking instead of answering. All day long, kids come to us with these minor conflicts or little problems, and our immediate, deeply ingrained parent instinct is to just fix it for them. Oh, you fought with your friend, just go say you're sorry. But handing them a ready-made solution actually steals their cognitive load. We do all the heavy thinking, and their brain, it builds nothing. So instead, the next time they come to you with a conflict, simply ask, why did that happen? Don't judge it, don't solve it, just prompt them to analyze the situation all on their own. Second, immediately follow that up with, well, what did they feel? This is huge because it forces the child entirely out of their own narrow perspective and demands that they consider someone else's emotional state. And third, let's rethink how we ask about their day. We've got to ditch that dead-end, how was your day question? Because let's be honest, that always just gets a mumbled fine. Instead, ask, what surprised you today? This actually prompts a real search through their memory banks and sparks a genuine, highly engaging conversation where you can kind of explore their values together. So why are we constantly firing all these questions at them? Because it builds higher order thinking. When a child analyzes a tricky situation, evaluates different perspectives, and weighs options to solve a complex problem independently, they aren't just learning a lesson. They're building true, deep-rooted self-confidence. Because at the end of the day, the conclusion they arrived at is fully 100% their own. Moving fast here, let's hit habit 3, chores build better brains. Look, I totally know what you're thinking. It is infinitely easier to just wipe the table or sweep the floor yourself. Kids take twice as long, and honestly, they usually make twice the mess. But constantly rescuing them completely robs them of a vital developmental opportunity. Think about the intense cognitive load of a simple chore, like setting the table. They literally have to plan the sequence of actions,
hold that exact plan in their working memory, control the overwhelming impulse to just drop everything and go play, and coordinate their motor skills to carry the plates without dropping them. You cannot replicate that powerful combination in any fancy app or video game. What's more, Harvard studies actually show that kids who regularly complete chores have significantly lower anxiety and better long-term psychological stability. Why? Because they feel a genuine, undeniable sense of purpose and belonging in their own. And the great thing is, this scales so naturally with age. 2-year-olds can totally throw away their own trash. 3-year-olds can easily wipe down a table. By the time they're 5 or 6, they can set the dinner table for the whole family. And by 7 and up, they can absolutely wash their own dishes. The key is to make this a consistent, shared family routine, totally stripped of the pressure of punishment. It's not a penalty, it's just part of living together.
Okay, habit 4. We call this the struggle, or 3 minutes of patience. Now, this one is tough. It goes against literally every fiber of our parental instinct to swoop in and rescue them from frustration. But I really want you to remember this incredibly simple rule. 3 minutes. The next time your child's giant block tower collapses or their jacket zipper gets totally stuck, just wait. Sit on your hands if you have to. Just silently observe for 3 whole minutes before you rush in to save the day. So why do we torture ourselves like this? Because struggle actually builds the prefrontal cortex. Those messy, frustrating little moments of independent struggle are literally the brain laying down the physical neural pathways for self-control, emotional regulation, and stress tolerance. If you swoop in and solve it instantly every time, those pathways literally never get built. And when they finally do figure it out, even if it's messy or not perfectly done, you need to use this exact script. Do not just say good job. Say, wow, you tried 3 times and you didn't quit. By pointing that specifically out, you are praising their effort, not just the final result. And that right there is the exact blueprint for building an unshakable, resilient growth mindset.
We are speeding into our final stretch now with 2 habits that beautifully complement each other. Habits 5 and 6, movement, music, and writing. Let's kick this off with a really surprising one. Just dancing around your living room is a literal neuro workout. Let's rapidly break down why this works. A quick, incredibly fun 5-minute dance session activates the cerebellum to coordinate those wild movements. It massively boosts working memory as your child tries to follow a tricky rhythm or mirror your totally silly dance moves. But most importantly, it completely unloads an overstimulated nervous system. After a super long day of following rules and intense learning, jumping around to loud music just reboots their brain. And bonus, it puts you and your child on a completely equal, totally expectation-free level. It instantly rebuilds your connection. Now, let's shift our focus to the final tool in our playbook, handwriting. A lot of times we just think of writing as boring schoolwork, but writing for oneself, like leaving silly sticky notes on the fridge for your kid to reply to, or encouraging them to keep a private diary, is incredibly powerful. Handwriting demands serious, complex motor planning and text structuring. But far more importantly, especially as they grow into teenagers, a private, entirely unjudged journal promotes this incredibly deep self-reflection. It is honestly one of the most powerful psychological supports they can possibly have to process their own messy emotions independently. So let's bring this whole thing together. 6 habits, 0 cost, 1 fully interconnected brain-building system. Think about it. Reading builds logical comprehension, which directly fuels their ability to actually answer those higher-order questions you ask them. Doing chores builds the self-organization they desperately need to push through those 3-minute struggles. Dancing totally resets the fried nervous system so they actually have the energy to reflect deeply in their writing. Every single one of these habits amplifies the others to build a truly resilient, deeply thoughtful child.
Which brings us to our final and most important question for you. Look, you absolutely do not need to implement all of these at once. Nobody has time for that. But out of these 6 incredibly effective, entirely free strategies, which habit are you going to try first today? Just pick one, test it out, and genuinely watch those neural connections grow. Thank you so much for joining me on this rapid-fire explainer, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the incredible science hidden in our everyday lives.